It was probably another 2 years before I believed that I wasn't going to become a criminal as an adult. What's up guys, and welcome back to EmKay. My name is Damien, and today we're looking at r/Askreddit. What is your most traumatic experience with a teacher? Teacher told me I was a liar to the whole class as she didn't believe my grandmother was a World War II evacuee. She refused to believe me as she assumed my mom was younger than she looked at the time, and therefore my grandmother was younger as well. She thought my mom was in her late 20s when in reality she was in her early 40s at the time. Teacher accused me of stealing artwork I imagined and created myself. She failed me for the quarter. Hands down the best teacher I ever had got pulled out mid-class to get arrested for multiple child molestation charges. What? Computer teacher shamed me into withdrawing from the one programming class the school offered after the first day of it because he said he didn't think I was capable of learning how to program and that other kids more capable couldn't take it because I was filling a spot. Not so traumatic, but was a very bad experience for many. My science teacher subtracted 3 points of everyone's grades because he had a bad day. Half of my friends didn't make it to the next year. What a jerk, wow. My overweight band teacher closed the door to his office and yelled at me for 40 minutes straight because I asked if I could miss a weekend event as waterboy to attend my best friend's birthday. Screw you, Mike. I accidentally played footsie with a teacher. He was my English teacher and also the baseball coach. The baseball and softball teams traveled together sometimes, and somehow we wound up sitting at the same table. I thought I was nudging someone else and he said something. I turned beet red. I had a teacher who found out I was bi and refused to let anyone sit in the seat next to me at my table. It wasn't like I was in the back of the class, I was dead center front row and she said it out loud to the class. This reminds me of a teacher I had in 4th grade. I still remember her. Miss Everest, you were a garbage human being. She'd make fun of me because I was an overweight kid, and she would like call me up to the front, make me write my name down on this punishment paper when I was doing nothing. And she had a favorite student. His name was Chance. I remember you, Chance. You got a stupid first name. Anyway, in the 8th grade, I had a book report to do for 4 books, all due on the same day that was way too overwhelming to do at the time. I had some serious domestic violence going on at home between my parents, spent all my time taking care of my younger brother, cleaning up the house, cooking, and crying from all the stress. It was worth 20% of my grade, and the day before it was due, I broke down and told my teacher everything, down to the time when my brother bled from his head from being hit by my dad to the most recent attempted murder upon my mom. If I had even received a B, my dad would have beat the crap out of my mom for giving birth to a stupid kid. He called child services, my parents received the call, and gave me the silent treatment for 3 days. They told him I lied just to get out of the assignment. The social worker told my teacher what my parents said made the rest of my year a living hell. He treated me with such pettiness after that and threatened to call my parents whenever I had either spoken too loud in class or whenever I was unparticipative in gym. He called my parents for my bad behavior. Home life got significantly harder after that, and my parents told my entire family continuously how stupid I was for telling him. They laughed at me when I cried or got upset about it. Years later, after repressing everything, I was diagnosed with severe PTSD from childhood trauma as a witness and victim of domestic violence, attempted murder thrice, and it took me 3 years in therapy to get over it. It was quick, but it was tough, as it was during my university years and I ended up having to take an extra year of school to catch up mentally. I was ready to speak up about my struggles again when I couldn't function anymore as the traumatic flashbacks occurred twice a week for hours at a time. I couldn't do a single thing except tremble and live in fear. I was 18 by the time when I was ready to reach out for help. Screw you, Mr. Gentle. Your name is creepy as F, and I really do wonder if being a petty 33-year-old to a 12-year-old child made your quality of life better. I hope that there's proper procedures put in place to protect children from such experiences. I used to love math and science until I had a teacher in 6th grade who would bully, mock, and do everything in his power to embarrass me in front of the entire class. I lost all love I had for school after that class. F you, Mr. Bright. Starting in sophomore year of high school, every Valentine's Day I would get a secret admirer card in my locker. Being an idiot high school girl, I was super flattered, and my friends and I would try and wring our brains to figure out who it was. Finally comes senior year and I get another sweet admirer card. Except this year it was sent to my home address and, instead of being handwritten, is typed out and pasted onto the card, with the lyrics from one of my teacher's favorite Bob Dylan songs, Simple Twist of Fate. So turns out my secret admirer all throughout high school was in fact one of my teachers. On top of the secret admirer cards, the day after I graduated he started texting me telling me to get drunk for pillow talk. No thanks, buddy. What a creep. What a creep. I was bullied really bad. Kids kept drawing awful, ugly photos and leaving them on my desk with profanity towards my appearance. I had enough one day after dealing with a lot of abuse at home and the bullying at school, and when I saw another, broke down crying and brought it to my teacher. She just grabbed it, looked and asked if I wanted it back. Did nothing to help. Wouldn't listen to me about the constant bullying and did absolutely nothing. I was in 7th grade and still remember it to this day. Oh, I'm gonna butcher these names. We were discussing Jean Vanier in L'Arche. For context, Jean Vanier decided to invite 2 intellectually disabled men to live with him and started setting up homes for them so they wouldn't be in asylums. The teacher looked right at me, I'm disabled, and said, "Oh yeah, Vanier created those homes so you people wouldn't be bothering people because the handicapped don't function in society." My friend I left just to talk it out. He got fired a few years later because he did not have his license up to date. Cherry on top, his wife was the vice principal. Ah, nepotism. Sorry about the crap he said though, hope you're doing well. We knew he was stupid. It was a course taught exclusively in French, and most of us were bilingual and we actually kept a tally of how many mistakes he made. I graduated last year and I'm now studying physics at the Canadian equivalent of MIT. No issues because everyone who makes it there for STEM is pretty much a genius. First grade. The teacher didn't like me for whatever reason, always counted my papers off a point for no reason. Not the part that gave me issues though. She assumed that I didn't like math, that I was bad at it. We spent hours a week counting little paper tokens when the other kids were doing their other assignments. I'm not and have never been bad at math. A- to B+ range. But I didn't like it then, and that only reinforced my dislike of it. I early enrolled while still in high school and had a professor who really made me love politics and law, so I decided that was what I wanted to focus my academic career on. I did well in all of my courses and was setting myself up to start my bachelor's with political science pre-law as my major. All was going well until one professor, an older man who hated me from day one. He saw this young blonde chick in his class, which, let's be real, was an easy and basic prereq at a community college, and decided I wasn't worth his time. He would constantly answer any of my questions condescendingly in an effort to make me feel dumb. He would call on me to answer questions on material he hadn't taught yet. Finally, at the end of the semester, he handed back my final paper and decided to have a talk with me after the rest of the class. He told me that maybe politics and law wasn't the thing for me, and that maybe I should look into doing something different. Joke's on him though, I ended up completing my major and working as main staff on a major campaign during 2012. Then after all that fun, I decided that I didn't want to go to law school and now I work for the government. So still, screw that dude. Got accused of plagiarism over a paper I wrote, and didn't plagiarize, that I was really excited about because of how well I thought I did on it. Enthusiasm fully destroyed. I had a similar experience where my literature professor brought me in to tell me my paper was flagged by the software for being plagiarized from over 180 other student papers from around the country. Not websites, not public articles, student papers from other schools. Longest chain of plagiarized words was 6. I laughed at her because I thought she was pointing out how ridiculously sensitive the software was. She was offended that I laughed at her. I asked her if she really believed that I tracked down almost 200 students to steal 3-word phrases from them and stitch them together into a paper, which would take 50 times the effort that it actually took to write it, not in those exact words. I really thought I wrote a great paper. Got an A, but I think it was because she felt dumb. This professor giving a pointless class in college. My phone accidentally rang because I was waiting for a medical call. I interrupted him because of that. I apologized and said sorry. The a-hole said, "Sorry for your parents that pay your college fee. They're wasting money." Loud to everyone in that class. I had a huge urge to punch him but remained silent because I was changing careers that semester and would not see him for another course anyway. He always got away with humiliating students with those types of comments for petty stuff. Everyone hated that a-hole. I had a teacher in 8th grade who obviously didn't like me. She was awful. I was kind of having a hard time fitting and getting emotionally bullied. Then my parents got a divorce, and I admit I was off at times and it probably showed that I took it out on other students. So before class started, I was goofing off with other children and she turned at me and said, "You realize nobody likes you, right?" I was taken aback and just kind of reinforced what I already knew, that I didn't and probably would never fit in. I was in 4th grade. Found a dry erase marker on the playground. I wrote my initials on a tire swing. Classmate rats me out. I get yelled at for like 20 minutes about vandalism of school property. She starts going off about how it's the first step to becoming a criminal. Being a little kid, this scared the crap out of me. It was probably another 2 years before I believed that I wasn't going to become a criminal as an adult. I was talking about the flying squirrels at my grandparents' cabin to a friend and the teacher overheard me. He bellowed out, "There's no such thing as flying squirrels. Don't lie just to get people to pay attention to you." And this guy's a teacher? One of the worst ones was when I didn't have a worksheet, which I knew was in my locker, so she freaked out about my messy desk, pulled it into the hallway, and dumped it on the floor. My gym teacher was equally as bad, if not worse. This school was very athletic and students' treatment was based on athletic ability. I am not at all athletic, never have been. We had to run around the football field and baseball diamond at the start of every gym class. If you slowed down, even to catch your breath, you had to go around again. I spent many gym classes just walking the field because I can't run that far, so why bother? Honestly, there's so much more. That school really messed me up. I had some mental health issues developing and spent a lot of time out of class with the well-being staff. When someone asked where I was one day, the teacher, who I previously looked up to and had confided in, decided to tell everyone that I was doing terribly and needed help. When I confronted him and said, "Dude, what the hell?" he said he thought it would help so people would be gentle. I do believe he had good intentions, but it did not frickin' help. I said the dot over the I or J is called a tittle. She said it's not a tittle, it's a dot. And with that, she accused me of being impertinent. The girls in our elementary school were given proto-sex ed before the boys. The basic puberty stuff, your body's starting to change, you might develop breasts, sweating, all that stuff. They made a huge stupid deal about keeping it quiet. It's the girls' little secret, don't go spreading it all around school. It only occurs to me now that that is kind of dangerous in the wider scope of things. Anyway, my best friend was a boy, and naturally I skipped right off to tell him why suddenly half the class had an assembly all by themselves. My teacher heard about it, got me alone, grabbed me by both my arms, and shook me, "Keep your mouth shut." She was my favorite teacher up till then, totally a great thing to teach a kid. I have social anxiety, and was nervous about having to play a song that described my life for my high school senior English class. My teacher grabbed a cape and like a hat or something from a closet, then stood on my desk and danced around while announcing to the class I was nervous, and she was trying to show me there was nothing to be nervous about. Called a whole lot of attention to me and my anxiety in such a weird way. Probably sounds stupid to most people, but I did not appreciate that at all. Totally did the opposite of calming my nerves. I always hated everything related to social interaction during classes. My history teacher had a beanbag he would pull out of his desk and just look at all the students. He would proceed to ask a question related to the subject and throw the beanbag to a random student. And as a really lazy student, I never studied and didn't really pay attention in class, so naturally I was really anxious about him picking me. So I would always make myself look busy or try to develop methods to decrease the chance of him choosing me. Luckily, I only got chosen once during that year, but every time I saw that beanbag, I would get anxious as frick. This isn't really one of my traumatic experiences, but it's related to my social anxiety, so there's that. Teacher forced me to handwrite a story, then got mad when I couldn't read it to the class. I have learning disabilities and normally use the school laptop, but she wouldn't let me use it. My senior year of high school, my mental health took a steep dive. I was dealing with a lot of instability at home. One of my closest friends had become a relentless antagonistic bully to me, and the only thing that made me feel better was playing bass guitar in the jazz band class. Or it was, until our band teacher left. The replacement, Mrs. Wrath, was just terrible. I think she tried, but she was not good. My bully ran that class and Wrath encouraged it. My bass guitar skills weren't good enough, so I ended up being banished to play Triangle and Jingle Bells. It's a small miracle I didn't kill myself throughout that year because Lord knows I wanted to. I'll never forget the day she asked us our opinions on a specific piece we were playing, which was objectively horrible. She called on me and I said I didn't like it. She then yelled at me for being negative and being the worst member of the band, until I cried. Fortunately, that was not long. She made me play songs faster and harder until I permanently scarred the tendons in both my wrists. And whenever my bully decided to lash out at me, Mrs. Wrath would watch and laugh. So, yeah, Kathy, screw you. I'm glad you got banished to elementary school teaching. I hope I never see you again. Step on Legos for the rest of your life. I got into a shouting match with my band director before a marching band competition in another state. He had anger issues, and the fight was over him calling me out in front of everyone for messing up my saxophone solo the week before. There was no one else around to see or hear the shouting. He never said as much as a word to me for the remainder of my time in high school, and I was perfectly fine with it. During quiet reading time, my teacher brought me to the front of the class because I was reading a book for girls, and he asked me, "Why are you reading a girl's book? Are you a girl?" Then made me choose a book for boys to read. I was maybe 10 or 11. The book was Matilda, by the way. I love Matilda. Mine is more of a lighthearted traumatic. In 4th grade, I collected Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Yo, same, and Pokemon cards. And I had gotten the, at the time, new 3 Egyptian god cards. Well, I was caught playing with them during class and my teacher took them from me and threw them out. I was devastated after all the packs opening cards trade to acquire them. I never forgave her. Did they ever end up being worth anything before all the reprint boxes? I would have loved to see her face if she found out they were worth some coin. So when I was in kindergarten, I didn't make it to the bathroom in time and wet myself. Went to the nurse's office, got new clothes, but instead of panties I had to wear a pull-up. Not a big deal. I guess it was school policy for kids my age, I didn't really know. When I got back to my class, my teacher loudly says, "Oh good, the baby is finally back." What an evil teacher, what? Or something like that. She also knew about the policy and asked if I was wearing a diaper so every other student could hear. I was 5, felt a ton of shame and humiliated. I started crying and trying to get out of school a lot because of it. My teacher often referred to me as a baby for the rest of the year. She would also constantly ask if I needed to potty or if I was wearing a diaper, like I was a toddler or something. What a demon teacher. That's not a real person, that's a devil. I never made a connection with any of my teachers except for one. It was the 5th grade and I got bullied a lot. No one seemed to care except for my English teacher, Mr. Coleman. He gave me a job after class sorting books and stuff so that I didn't have to take the bus. I loved to read, so he would give me books meant for some of the older grades that he thought I'd enjoy. We grew close, and the most traumatic day I ever had was when he announced that he'd be leaving at the end of the year. I felt devastated that my only friend and mentor would be gone. I ran into the bathroom crying, and there were a bunch of other kids in there, so they watched me pee. And that brings us to the end of r/AskReddit, and if you liked the video, leave a link down below. As always with these videos, I do like to talk about, bring the comment section into these, so if you have anything that's like stories like this, read them, write them down, I'll be reading them. That's what I meant to say. And as always, I'll be seeing you.